panayam, balita at iba pa.
Welcome back mga kabarangay sa ating Barangay New Zealand podcast na napapanood po dito po sa ating PSTV Plus platform. Magandang gabi po, magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. Ako po inyong kaibigan sa Impapawid ng inyong Direk Rene. Welcome po kayo dito sa ating munting programa. At this is a continuing series of the candidates of the Philippines, Miss Philippines New Zealand 2024. And we have interviewed already several candidates. And right now, our candidate hails or comes from the beautiful city of Christchurch. A couple of years ago, I got to meet our candidate. I was in Christchurch. I was invited by the University of Canterbury to present at the in a media conference in the university. And she was one of I think she was nearly finishing her program as a bachelor in media studies or industries. And she was one of the person who was in attendance. And at the end of the conference, during the breakout session, she approached me, introduced herself, that she is also a Filipino, half Kiwi. And so from then on, we communicated, not really constantly, but from time to time. And I found out that she did her internship up here in Auckland at Radio New Zealand. So it's quite interesting journey. Let me bring into the stream our guest, Carmina Blewett. Hi, Carmina. Good evening.
Hello, good evening. Magandang gabi po.
Magandang gabi. Ano pa ibang alam mong Tagalog word? Putting in the spot. You know a little bit about how to speak, or you understand more?
I would honestly say my comprehension is much better than my speaking skills. I know when I'm in trouble. I know when there's gossip. I know when they're talking about money. But that's about it as far as it goes. So it's a work in progress.
Okay. Now, Carmina, just to put into context, your mom is a Filipino. Whereabouts in the Philippines is your mom from?
Well, she mainly grew up in Quezon City, and then, well, she was only there for about 30 years, and then she came out to New Zealand after she married my father, and, well, that's almost been another 30 years. So she's essentially spent half of her life already in New Zealand.
Have you been to the Philippines, Carmina?
Yes, I've been very privileged to go twice now. And both times I really enjoyed my time over there. I think the way of life, it seems a lot more hectic, but for me that appeals because Christchurch is very, or as you've probably experienced being in Christchurch, is quite quiet and calm and predictable and not too much going on. And I think having the contrast, I really enjoyed it. And one thing that really stood out to me was if you get a little bit hungry at night in the Philippines, it's fine because you can go out and you can go find food. In New Zealand, if it's past 10, well, the supermarkets are closed, and then you're wondering, okay, well, only the dairy is still open, and even then you'd be lucky if you could find one. So I think the Philippines definitely has its perks. They're keeping its people well fed and with a lot of options open after dark.
That's correct. And that's very true. And living in Quezon City, I just can imagine like the traffic that you have to undergo, and you go through if you go to Makati, Ortigas, or wherever. And speaking of food, do you have a favorite Filipino food, Carmina?
You know, it's actually difficult to pinpoint just one.
Okay.
Personally, I pride myself in my son's revolves. I make those and I sell those within Christchurch. So that's definitely my favorite when it comes to sweets. But for savouries, I would have to say it's going to be crispy pata. I know it's not that good for the health, but it's good for the soul. So that's easily my top pick.
Yeah.
But I would have to say curry comes in a close second.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like, sans rival. It's not easy to make sans rival, because if it's easy, there will be many people doing it. I understand it. I mean, maybe it's easy. It's laborious. It takes a lot of time.
It's a bit of a process, I think, because I've made them so many times now. I don't really have to
Mhm.
think about it. I don't really have to look at the recipe anymore. It's all just sort of
Oh,
become a bit of a muscle memory, but it's definitely the time that goes into it. And I could completely understand why people just don't have the patience to put
mhm,
everything together. You've got
mhm.
the layers of meringue to make, and then of course you've got the buttercream to make, and that can be a little bit tedious because you've got the eggs in it, and
Okay.
you don't want the eggs to scramble when you put the egg yolks in. So it's a little bit of a process, but I think it's worth it in the end for the product that you get.
And I think it's something like, what I get from what you're saying is it's like your connection to the culture. It's more of it's part of, although it's not originally from the Philippines, but it has become like a Filipino uh, culinary, or what's this, for dessert. Okay, so
Mm,
you went here for your internship, the Radio
correct.
New Zealand. Unfortunately, we weren't able to meet, but I knew that you were up here. Tell us a little bit about that. What were you? How long did you do the internship?
Right. So the internship was over 6 months, and initially I started off in the main newsroom, which there was a lot going on. It's essentially like the engine room of news in terms of the major news outlets. There's just a lot going on, a lot of people running around to the recording studios, a lot of calls being
Hmm.
taken. So it was a little bit overwhelming to begin with, um, but I think I soon found my feet, especially when they moved me to a different department. So that was helping with looking after the early morning show. So it wasn't, news in the sense of, okay, there's been a car accident on the highway. It was a little bit more longer form, looking at more sort of, I suppose, human interest stories, but
Hmm.
also current affairs, just, given a bit more time
Hmm.
to really flesh things out. So I definitely enjoyed that element of it. And of course, more than anything, it was me finally being able to put what I learnt into practice. So I did my undergraduate, my degree at the New Zealand Broadcasting School, and that was over 2 years. And those were two very cramped, fast paced years with very short term breaks in between. Sometimes we just get a week. So yes, when I finally got into the industry, it was good to put what I had learned into practice. And of course, with that 6 month period, that actually enabled me to then pass my degree.
Hmm.
So yes, I'm very pleased that I got that under my belt. And it turns out that I am a perpetual student because I have recently just finished my postgraduate in ICT.
Oh, okay. There in Christchurch also.
Correct, yes, in
Okay.
Christchurch.
Wow. It's a, but it's also like similar, right? Integrated with broadcasting, with ICT, with
Well,
digital
when I
technology.
tell people that I've just, done another course of study in a different field, they say, well, what does IT have anything to do with journalism? And on the surface, you'd say, well, probably nothing, but there's definitely those transferable skills. For example, a qualification where it's very communication heavy and very people facing. That's kind of one of the areas that a lot of
Hmm.
IT people really struggle with. They struggle to be quite people facing and
Okay.
communicative. Whereas that's something which comes very naturally for me,
Hmm.
in a professional sense. So
Hmm.
I think that it complements my skill set to have both of
Okay.
those things. Very different, but I think yeah,
Mhm.
they merge nicely.
In the first place, Carmina, why were you interested in broadcast communication, broadcasting? I took it up when you were in the university. What was it that attracted you to that sector?
Well, I think there are a few reasons. I figured out when I was younger that, what I was good at was anything sort of words based. That was what I always gravitated towards. Anything sort of quite, mathematical or formula based, I would try and get as far away from that as possible. So I was always comfortable in the space of words and creating things. And then as I got through my teens, I started to figure out, okay, well, professionally, what are the things I value? And, I value things like integrity and justice. So then I was thinking, well, I guess it could be law or it could be journalism. And initially I was thinking, something more law or even potentially joining the police. But then as time went on, I figured out, no, actually, I would rather, deliver the information. I would rather gather and deliver it,
Correct.
in a meaningful and evocative
Mm-hmm.
way. So
Mm-hmm.
that's how I found my way into journalism. So yeah, it was definitely the dream, and I'm
Okay.
glad that I managed to complete that.
Now, I recall in that conference in the University of Canterbury where we first met, there were several young persons who were in attendance, and there, of course, there were like the graduate students, the more senior students, and almost all of the young students left after, but you stayed behind, and I saw that you were like. When we were talking, I mean, when we were presenting, I saw you were taking down notes, and after that, you were talking to other presenters also. So I think there was the gem of a journalist already from there. Like you heard something, but you wanted to validate it. You wanted to get more information, and that's how we even like you approached me, and that we got to talk. And yeah, it's gratifying to think that the young age you have this desire to whether it's investigative journalism, whether it's like documentary type. Because the one in the morning in Radio New Zealand, if I get the chance, I listen to that, especially on a Saturday. I listen to them in the morning, but I am more a listener in the afternoon, especially with Jesse. Jesse.
Yes, Jesse
Oh,
Mulligan.
Jesse Mulligan, yeah. So in the afternoon, and I met him in when my daughter graduated from Tech in Hamilton. He was the guest speaker, so I asked my daughter, can I have a picture with him, or so is this something that you would like to pursue? This journalistic type of writing, of interviewing, because you have your own podcast now, and
Yes,
that's
so
something that,
so
yeah.
my podcast, it was actually something that I did almost 5 years ago now, come to think of it. I did it in my second year of journalism, and it was as part of an independent project. And I'd always thought I'd like to try my hand at a podcast, because I never really gravitated towards the kind of very surface level journalism of kind of very predictable news. I like the idea of fleshing something out and digging into a topic a little deeper, interviewing somebody a little bit more long form. So that was my perfect opportunity. And I decided that I would do it about the cost of love. And that is its title as well, The Cost of Love, which is available on Spotify. And there are, I believe, 5 episodes to it. And so The Cost of Love, the title, well, it would evoke ideas of, well, how much does love cost? So it looked at all sorts of costs associated to, I suppose, relationships in the more
Mhm.
broad sense. How much is the average wedding, for example? And
Oh.
that, yeah, that I interviewed a wedding planner, and I was stunned. And at the time, I was already thinking, well, I guess I better start saving, or else I better win the lottery, because there's no way I don't think I could justify forking out, 50 grand or so on just a day. So
Mhm.
I was surprised, and I think it did well. At least it reflected in the grade that I got.
Mhm.
And I've had people from all over the world listen in, and I've had good
Mhm.
feedback on it. So I think that now that I've finished my postgraduate and things are kind of
Mhm.
cooling down mentally and
Mhm.
academically, I'd like to revisit those passions that I initially had, but I had to sort of put on the back burner for the sake of continuing studies. So definitely uh, potentially looking into doing another podcast, or finally starting the blog that I was talking about doing for the past 5 years. I would like to revisit those and actually commit to them this time.
And let's now go to your journey as a candidate for the Miss Philippines New Zealand 2024.
Sure.
That journey is a lot of rich materials for your blog, for your podcast, And I like what you said that you want that it more appeals to you the long form. I myself, I am not. I've done that. I've done my part for radio, for TV, the investigative type, but I'm not really like the news and not the public affairs. I'm more on the public affairs rather than the news, and that is I like that term that you want to draw out, flesh out, like from how much does a wedding cost, like how much does a lot of things. So that brings me now to your joining the pageant. What made you decide to join this Miss Philippines New Zealand 2024?
Well, I suppose there are a couple of reasons why I wanted to join. I think well, part of it has to do with I joined the Muchanga Pilipinas 2024 for New Zealand a couple of months ago, and that was
Mm,
my first ever pageant experience after many years of questioning, what is the purpose of a pageant, especially in
mm-hmm,
2024, and all of this female empowerment, and what is the relevance of it? I had a lot of questions and curiosity accumulating over several years, and then when I saw the advert to apply, I just thought, well, here's my perfect opportunity to actually experience it myself and, answer my own questions. But I think another layer on top of that, which also feeds into why I'm applying to Miss Philippines New Zealand, is because it's something I haven't done before. It's something I know that it's not something I'm naturally going to be good at. It's something that I have to work for and aim
mm,
towards. And I believe it's really outside of your comfort zone where you grow the most as a person.
mm-hmm,
And the other factor was also my Lola. So she was an actress in the Philippines for
oh,
several decades, and
mm-hmm,
when she was still alive, as she sadly passed last year, whenever she would call me, she would always say, "Hello, Miss New Zealand." And,
oh,
that always sort of just went oof, over my head of, okay, lovely compliment.
mm-hmm,
Um, but, I'd never seriously thought about, applying to any pageants. And then after she'd passed away, all of those sorts of conversations
mm-hmm,
were quite fresh in my memory. And I'd be thinking about, the things she said to me over the years. And, that really played into me feeling like,
mm-hmm.
actually, let's do something a little bit different. And she was
Okay.
someone who believed in me wholeheartedly. So let's give something different a go.
And this is for Lola, who is watching over you at this time in your journey. Now, Carmina, if you get the crown for Miss Philippines New Zealand 2024, so it is a platform, okay? What will you do with this platform?
Well, there are several things I could do with it. The first thing that does come to mind, and something that I've been curious and wondering about and passionate about, is of course diplomacy between New Zealand, both Filipinos here and locals here, but also abroad, because in Miss Philippines New Zealand, as much as I am representing Filipinos abroad, I'm also representing New Zealand equally. So I would really like to strengthen those diplomatic bonds between
Mm-hmm.
the Philippines here and abroad.
Mm-hmm. Mm, very good, very good. It is a journey, and now I can see that there's a personal touch to that journey with your Lola, with your family, and with yourself. And so I wish you all the best, Carmina. It's just pretty much like 2 weeks from now, I think. So
Yes, in 2 weeks' time, I will be on that stage doing my thing.
I already bought the tickets for
Oh,
the
fantastic.
festival, so I just I'm not really sure to be there on time because that will be my final week also for my teacher training. That is our presentation of our thesis. But I said, oh, I've been interviewing the candidates. I'd like to see them in person also and probably get a selfie with them, like, and cheer them on. Because this will be 2 nights, right? Saturday and Sunday. So
Yes,
there
I
are
believe
like several.
that the festivities are split over the 2 days. Yes.
And you'll be here by Friday, I think, because there's like a
Yes.
meet and greet and all of those things. Okay. So, Carmina, it's in your chance now to invite our listeners and viewers about this Miss Philippines New Zealand 2024.
Sure. Well, I'd like to invite everybody in Auckland and further afield to come and join in on the festivities, especially the 27th. I would love to see you all there and see you in the audience.
Thank you so much because the 27th, that is the coronation night, right?
Correct.
That's a
Yes.
Sunday. So, all the best, Carmina.
Thank you.
Ikaw ay isang mabuting anak, mabait ka, and lahat ng iyong nananais ay hopefully it will come. It will, not hopefully, it will come to life, whatever it is you dream. And I'll get to listen to The Cost of Love, yung podcast ni Carmina na nasa Spotify. So thank you again, Carmina. And thank you also to our listeners and viewers for allowing Carmina and me to come into your homes, into your hearts at this time and at this moment. So thank you, take care, and God bless. Goodbye for now.
The Filipino Show, ikwento mo.
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 The Filipino Show.
Ikwento mo.
The Filipino Show.
Ikwento mo.
The Filipino Show.
Ikwento mo.
Filipino Show.
Ikwento mo. The Filipino Show.
Ikwento mo.